The sun bled crimson over the colony of New Eden, painting the wheat fields in hues of fire. Children's laughter still hung in the air from the afternoon games, the sound not yet chased away by the gathering dusk. Captain Elias Voss stood on his farmhouse porch, calloused hands gripping the railing as he watched his daughter Lena chase fireflies through the tall grass. Her golden hair caught the dying light like a banner. Then the sky screamed. Elias' combat instincts fled before his mind processed the sound, the high-pitched whine of atmospheric entry, the kind only massive ships made. His head snapped upward as the clouds tore apart. Obsidian, black hulls punched through the atmosphere, their jagged silhouettes blotting out the sunset. Vorak slaver ships, dozens of them. Lena, Elias bellowed, already vaulting the porch railing. His boots hit the dirt as the first shockwave hit, rattling the farmhouse windows. Across the field, his daughter froze, fireflies forgotten as she stared at the descending nightmare. Sergeant Mara Cade burst from the barn, her rifle already in hand. Elias, the emergency channel. It is not just us, they're hitting every settlement on the continent. Elias didn't answer. He was already running, legs pumping as the first Vorak drop pods slammed into the fields like meteors. The pods hissed open, revealing armored figures wielding shock prods taller than a man. Their chitinous armor gleamed under the colony's warning lights as they fanned out with predatory efficiency. "Papa!" Lena's scream cut through the chaos. Elias skidded to a halt just in time to see a Vorak overseer grab his daughter by the arm. The creature stood nearly 3 meters tall, its 4 arms ending in serrated claws. Lena kicked wildly, her small fists pounding against armor that didn't flinch. Elias moved without thought. His combat knife was in his hand before he remembered drawing it. The blade flashed as he lunged, aiming for the gap between the overseer's chest plates. The Vorak backhanded him with casual brutality. Elias hit the ground hard, his vision swimming. Through the ringing in his ears, he heard Mara's rifle bark 3 times. The specialized armor, piercing rounds he'd traded a month's harvest for. The Vorak staggered but didn't fall. Its laugh sounded like grinding bones. "Sofkin," it hissed, dragging Lena toward a waiting transport skiff. "Your young will serve the Empire well. Their bones don't break as easily as yours." Elias spat blood and forced himself up around him. The colony burned. Vorak shock troops herded children into transport ships, while adults who resisted were cut down or left writhing under neural whips. He saw Old Man Henderson swing a pitchfork at an overseer's face. The Vorak caught it and snapped the farmer's neck with a twist of its wrist. Mara grabbed Elias' shoulder. "We can't take them head on, there is too many." Elias watched helplessly as the skiff carrying Lena lifted off, its anti-grav drives kicking up dust. His daughter's face pressed against the viewport, her small hands leaving smudges on the glass. Their eyes met for one terrible second before the ship accelerated skyward. The ridge gave them a vantage point as the last transports ascended. Elias' hands shook, not from fear, but from the ice, cold fury settling in his bones. Below New Eden smoldered. The Vorak hadn't bothered to kill all the adults, just those who fought back. A message, Elias realized. That resistance was futile. Mara's fingers dug into his arm. "Remember their faces, Elias." Her voice was steel wrapped in velvet. "Every scar on those ships, every marking on their armor, we will burn them for this." Above them, the slaver fleet began moving into formation. The largest vessel, a dagger, shaped monstrosity with a hull carved from black meteorite, activated its jump drive. Space itself seemed to tear as the ship vanished, taking 1,000 stolen children with it. Elias Voss didn't weep. He didn't scream. He simply watched the empty sky where his daughter had disappeared and made a promise to the stars. The Vorak had made one fatal mistake. They'd left the parents alive. The obsidian towers of Zorath Prime pierced the toxic clouds like jagged teeth, their polished surfaces reflecting the sickly green light of the system's twin suns. Acid oceans churned far below the floating citadel where High Overlord Kraxus held court. His massive chitin, plated form sprawled across a throne, crafted from human femurs and skulls. The air smelled of ozone and decay, the ever-present hum of the Citadel's anti-grav generators vibrating through the bone floor. "Show me again," Craxus rumbled, his triple-jointed fingers drumming against an armrest made from a child's ribcage. The holographic display flickered to life above the throne room's central pit, projecting images of crying human children being marched onto Vorak transport ships. Their small faces streaked with dirt and tears, their tiny hands bound with biofiber restraints. The Zeperian advisor Vexis slithered forward on his tentacle limbs, his bulbous eyes reflecting the hologram's glow. "The harvest was successful, my lord. We've acquired nearly 10,000 specimens from the Terran colony worlds. Their reproductive rates make them ideal for," Craxus interrupted with a booming laugh that echoed through the chamber. "Look at them, sniveling, soft-skinned things. Barely put up a fight when we took their young." He leaned forward, his compound eyes glittering with amusement. "Tell me, Vexis, where is this famous human resilience we've heard so much about?" A ripple of laughter spread through the assembled Vorak warlords and mercenary captains. One particularly scarred warrior clacked his mandibles in amusement. "They soiled themselves when we landed. I saw grown males weeping as we took their spawn." Vex's facial tendrils twitched in what might have been irritation. "With respect, my lord, we should not underestimate them. My intelligence networks report increased activity among the human resistance cells. They are not a species that forgets insults." Craxus waved a dismissive claw. "What can they do? Their pathetic fleet was destroyed in the last war. Their homeworld still burns from our planet killers." He gestured at the hologram, zooming in on a particular image of a small girl with brown hair being dragged by her arm. "These will serve us well in the crystal mines. Their small fingers are perfect for delicate work." The chamber doors hissed open, admitting a squad of Vorak warriors dragging a human prisoner between them. The man's face was a mask of blood, one eye swollen shut, but he stood straight as they threw him to the floor before the throne. "Ah, another brave volunteer to entertain us," Craxus chuckled. "What is your name, human?" The prisoner spat blood onto the polished bone floor. "Captain Elias Voss, Terran Defense Force, and you're the ugly bastard who took my daughter." The warlords bristled at the insult, but Craxus only laughed harder. "Such spirit. I like this one." He leaned down, his massive head coming within inches of the battered human. "Tell me, Captain Voss, what will you do about your missing child? Cry to your pathetic gods. Write an angry letter to the Galactic Council." Voss' good eye burned with a fire that made even the battle-hardened Vorak warriors take an involuntary step back. "I'm going to kill every last one of you." Slowly, the throne room erupted in laughter again. Craxus wiped mock tears from his ocular ridges. "Oh, this is precious. A single human threatens the Vorak Empire." He gestured to his guards. "Take him to the pleasure pits. Let him entertain our gladiators for a few cycles before we recycle his organs." As the guards dragged Voss away, the human's voice never wavered. "You made a mistake, Craxus. You took our children. Now you'll learn why the galaxy fears humanity." Vexis watched the human being hauled off, his tentacles twitching nervously. "My lord, perhaps we should." "Enough, you're worrying," Craxus bellowed, slamming a fist down and cracking the armrest of his throne. "The humans are broken. Their fleets are dust. Their worlds burn. Their children serve us." He leaned back, picking up a goblet made from a human skull and drinking deeply of the fermented ichor within. "Let them come if they dare. We will add their bones to my throne." Outside the Citadel's towering windows, the acid storms of Zorath Prime raged, lightning flashing across the dark skies. Somewhere in those swirling clouds, unseen by Vorak sensors, a single black-hulled ship drifted silently in high orbit. Its stealth systems reverse, engineered from captured Vorak technology but improved beyond recognition, kept it hidden as it recorded every word spoken in the throne room. On the bridge of the USN Vengeance, Admiral Rachel Carter watched the live feed with cold fury. Around her, the crew worked in silence. The only sound the quiet beeping of sensor consoles and the occasional whispered order. "Play that last part again," Carter ordered. The holoscreen replayed Craxus's words. "Let them come if they dare." A young lieutenant turned in his seat, his face pale. "Admiral, we're detecting massive slave pens on 3 of their mining worlds. Thermal scans show thousands of small heat signatures." Carter's knuckles turned white as she gripped the edge of the command console. "Send the coordinates to all Nightfall vessels, and patch me through to Commander Holt's strike team." The comb crackled to life. "Holt here, we're in position, Admiral." Carter stared at the image of Craxus laughing on his throne of bones. "You have green light, Commander. Retrieve our children. Leave no Vorak alive." As the transmission ended, the first of the black stealth ships began moving toward the Vorak mining worlds, their weapons systems powering up in silence. The nightmare was coming, and the Vorak Empire had no idea what they'd awakened. The asteroid base hummed with quiet fury. Outpost Sigma hung in the debris field of a long dead star, its armored hull pockmarked from centuries of micro impacts. Inside the war room, Admiral Rachel Carter stood before the flickering hologram of Earth's ruined cities, her scarred hands clenched behind her back. The projection showed the skeletal remains of skyscrapers, the glassy craters where fusion warheads had turned entire districts to ash. "They took our children," Carter said, her voice like ground glass around the hexagonal table. The surviving officers of the United Earth Strike Force sat in silence. Some wore bandages, others had fresh cybernetic limbs. All had the same hollow look in their eyes, the look of predators forced into cages. Sergeant Maracade leaned forward, her knuckles white around a data tablet. "We've tracked the slaver convoy to Kethra Fey Vorak mining world. Heavy orbital defenses, but nothing," interrupted Commander Jake Holt. The dropship pilot's face was a patchwork of fresh grafts, souvenirs from the last evacuation run. "We go in hot, we burn their guard towers, we take our kids back." A murmur of agreement rippled through the room. Carter watched them, these broken, furious men and women, and felt something cold settle in her chest. She tapped a command into the holotable. The image shifted, showing schematics of 3 sleek, dagger-shaped vessels. "Project Nightfall," Carter said. The words tasted like gunpowder. "Classified Black, Ops Fleet. Stealth dreadnoughts with Vorak. Derived cloaking systems, improved by our engineers." The hologram zoomed in on the lead ship, US Vengeance. Its hull was coated in a fractal, adaptive metamaterial that bent light and radar around it like water. The other 2 ships, USN Wraith and USN Spectre, flanked it like ghosts. Cade whistled low. "That is how we hit them. They'll never see us coming." Holt frowned. 3 ships against an empire? Carter's smile didn't reach her eyes. "Not just ships, weapons." She flicked another command. The hologram dissolved into a star map, flashing red at Zorath Prime. "The Vorak think we're weak because we value life, because we hesitated to glass their worlds when they first attacked. They mistake mercy for frailty." The Admiral turned to face them fully, her reflection warping in the polished metal walls. "No more mercy, no more hesitation. We don't just rescue our children." She tapped the console again. The hologram erupted into a simulation. Vorak cities burning, their fleet reduced to molten slag. "We show the galaxy what happens when you take from humanity." A heavy silence followed. Then, from the back of the room, a voice cracked. "What about the kids, the ones still inside?" It was Lieutenant Chen, their youngest officer. His sister had been on the last transport. Carter didn't flinch. "We get them out, every single one. But understand this, some of them won't be the same. The Vorak don't just use slave labor, they experiment." The Admiral brought up a new file. Grainy footage showed a Vorak laboratory, human children strapped to tables, their spines fused with neural interfaces. One child, a girl no older than 9, suddenly convulsed. The Vorak scientist stepped back as her hands warped, bones elongating into claws. Holt slammed his fist on the table. "God damn them. God isn't here." Carter said quietly. Just us. She closed the file. We launch in 12 hours. Holt, you're leading the drop assault on Kethra. Faye Cade, you're with me on the Vengeance. We hit their command hub first. Chen stood abruptly. And after, when we have them back. The Admiral's gaze drifted to the hologram of Earth again. The ruins stared back, accusatory. Then we remind the Vorak why humans dominated our own planet. We hunt. Across the table, Comms Officer Rivas tapped into the base's ancient speaker system. A low, throbbing bass line began to pulse through the war room, an old Terran war chant from the Pacific Wars. One by one, the officers stood. Holt cracked his neck. I'll prep the drop pods. Cade checked her sidearm. I'll ready the boarding teams. Chen hesitated, then squared his shoulders. I want point on the extraction. Carter nodded. Done. She turned off the hologram. The room plunged into darkness, lit only by the emergency strips along the floor. Outside, through the reinforced viewports, somewhere in the void beyond, the Vorak Empire slept. They wouldn't for long. The sky above Kethra, Faye burned crimson, as the Vorak overseers marched another line of human children toward the crystal mines. Their tiny hands were raw from hours of digging, their faces streaked with dirt and dried tears. The air reeked of ozone and sweat, the planet's twin suns beating down without mercy. A Vorak guard cracked his shock, whip sending sparks dancing across the backs of the slowest kids. Faster, softlings. The harvest doesn't wait for your weakness. Lena Voss stumbled, her knees scraping against the jagged rock. At 10 years old, she had already learned to bite back her cries. The other children helped her up, their eyes hollow but burning with something the Vorak hadn't noticed yet. Not fear, not submission. A quiet, simmering hate. Then the sky screamed. A sound like tearing metal split the atmosphere, and the Vorak guards whirled, their insectoid eyes scanning the horizon. The clouds above the mining pits rippled, then parted as something massive decloaked. The USN Vengeance hung in the air like a blade, its blackened hull swallowing the sunlight. Railgun turrets spun to life with a chorus of mechanical growls. On the bridge, Commander Jake Holt tightened his grip on the command console. His HUD lit up with targeting data, painting every Vorak position in glowing red. All pods, drop on my mark. His voice was ice. Leave none alive. Below, the Vorak scrambled, their shrill battle cries echoing across the canyon. Human ships, how? The answer came in fire. Drop pods streaked from the Vengeance like falling stars, slamming into the mining complex with earth. Shaking force, hatches burst open, and armored figures emerged. Human soldiers, their rifles already spitting death. The Vorak guards barely had time to raise their shock, prods before their bodies were ripped apart by tungsten rounds. Lena watched, wide-eyed, as the battle erupted around her. A Vorak guard lunged for her, his mandibles clicking in fury. Then his head vanished in a spray of ketine, as a sniper round found its mark. The children huddled together, but Lena didn't flinch. She locked eyes with the soldier who'd fired the shot, his visor reflecting her dirt-streaked face. Stay down, kid, the soldier barked, his rifle already tracking the next target. We're getting you out of here. Lena didn't move. Her fingers closed around a fallen Vorak blade, its edge still slick with green blood. The soldier noticed and paused. Hey, you shouldn't. They took us, Lena said, her voice trembling but clear. They made us dig. They made us weak. She tightened her grip on the blade. Now we make them bleed. The soldier hesitated, then nodded. Stick close to me then. Chaos swallowed the mining complex. Human squads moved with brutal precision, clearing corridors and collapsing tunnels behind them. The Vorak, used to bullying unarmed slaves, faltered against trained soldiers. Their shock prods were useless against armor. Their exoskeletons cracked under rifle fire. Jake Holt's voice crackled over the comms. Primary objective secured. Prep for evac. But Lena wasn't listening. She darted between the fighting, her small frame slipping past Vorak patrols, too distracted by the soldiers to notice a child. She found a guard dragging 2 younger kids toward a transport ship and lunged. The Vorak barely had time to hiss before her blade found the soft joint between his thorax and abdomen. Green ichor sprayed as he crumpled. The freed kids stared at her, their faces pale. Lena wiped the blade clean on her ragged shirt. "Run to the humans," she ordered. "They'll protect you." Above, the Vengeance's railguns spoke again, reducing the Vorak barracks to molten slag. Jake watched the destruction from the bridge, his jaw tight. Status on the children? 37 recovered so far, reported his tactical officer. "But, Commander, they're fighting, the kids, they're helping." Jake's grip on the console tightened. He'd seen the reports, the conditions, the starvation, the beatings, and yet here they were, these tiny, broken things, picking up weapons. Instead of running, a new voice cut through the comms. Admiral Carter, her tone sharp. "Holt, we've got inbound Vorak reinforcements. 2 cruisers, ETA 6 minutes. Jake didn't hesitate. "Then we make these 6 minutes count." He switched channels. "All units, expedite extraction. Leave nothing behind but corpses." Below, Lena dragged another child from the wreckage of a collapsed tunnel. Her arms shook with exhaustion, but her eyes were bright. A human soldier reached for her, but she pulled away. "There's more inside," she insisted. "I can fit where you can't." The soldier cursed but nodded. 2 minutes, kid. Then we go." Lena vanished into the smoke. The Vengeance's engines roared, preparing for liftoff. Jake watched the clock, his fingers drumming against his thigh. "Where's that kid?" Then movement. Lena emerged, half carrying a boy no older than 6. Behind her, the tunnel collapsed in a shower of sparks. She stumbled but didn't fall. Jake exhaled. "Bring them home." As the last human soldiers boarded the dropships, the Vorak reinforcements finally arrived, just in time to watch the Vengeance vanish into the void, leaving only fire and the echoes of a promise in its wake. The nightmare had begun. The holographic war table flickered as reports poured in from across Vorak space. Admiral Rachel Carter stood motionless, her scarred hands clasped behind her back as the carnage unfolded in shimmering blue light. Every few seconds, another Vorak world blinked red, another system falling to human vengeance. "They're panicking," murmured Commander Jake Holt, his knuckles white around his datapad. "Their comms traffic just tripled in the last hour." A deep chuckle rumbled through the command center. Sergeant Mara Cade leaned against the tactical display, her armor still streaked with Vorak blood from Kethra. "Faye, good, let them scream." On the main screen, the image of Zifar, Faye burned, human plasma warheads had turned its sprawling cities into molten glass. The bombardment had lasted precisely 17 minutes. 1 minute for every 1,000 children taken. "Admiral." A young lieutenant spun in her chair, eyes wide. "We're picking up a priority transmission from the Vorak High Council. It is chaos." Carter didn't smile. "Put it through." The holograms shifted, revealing the obsidian halls of the Vorak High Council in disarray. Overlord Kraxus, his chitinous plates flared in rage, backhanded a cowering advisor. "How?" His voice boomed through the USN Vengeance's speakers. "Their ships should be detectable. Our sensors are flawless." A slender Zeperian Vexis slithered forward, her bioluminescent markings pulsing with anxiety. "They reverse engineered our stealth tech, Overlord." She hesitated, "and improved it." Silence. Kraxus' claws flexed. "Impossible." Vexis tapped a console, and a grainy image appeared. The USN Wraith decloaking directly above Zifarfe's capital, its railguns already charged. "They've been inside our borders for weeks, watching, learning." Her voice dropped to a whisper, waiting. A Vorak admiral staggered forward, his carapace cracked from battle. "Overlord, we've lost contact with 7 more outposts. Human boarding parties are—" "I know what they're doing," Kraxus roared, sending a console exploding against the wall. Deploy the reserve fleet, scramble every warship from the core systems. Vexis didn't move. It won't be enough. On the bridge of the Vengeance, Carter finally allowed herself a thin smile. They're scrambling reserves. Holt cracked his neck. Right on schedule. Cade tapped her wrist display, pulling up a star map. Their core fleets are moving to reinforce Zorath Prime. Leaves the outer systems wide open. Carter nodded. Execute Phase 2. Deep in the ship's belly, a dozen technicians worked in silence. Before them, a massive cylindrical device hummed to life. A captured Vorak hypercom relay, rewired and enhanced with human coding. The lead engineer wiped sweat from his brow. Patching into their network now. Across Vorak space, every active comm channel suddenly filled with static. Then, a child's voice. "Mommy, Daddy, I'm scared." It was Lena Voss, recorded 3 months ago in a Vorak holding cell. The transmission spread like wildfire. Every Vorak warship, every planetary defense grid, even Kraxus's private chambers. The static cleared, revealing grainy footage of human children in cages, their small hands pressed against the glass as Vorak overseers laughed. Then new footage, the same children, older, now their eyes hard, holding stolen weapons, standing over dead Vorak guards. A single line of text scrolled across every screen in the Empire. "We remember, on Zorath Prime." Kraxus stared at his trembling claws. For the first time in his long, cruel life, the Overlord felt something alien. Aboard the Vengeance, Carter watched the enemy's comms disintegrate into panic. "They made one mistake," she said softly. Holt glanced at her. "Only one, they thought breaking our children would break us." Carter turned to the helm. Set course for Zorath Prime. Maximum stealth. As the massive dreadnought vanished into the void, the last Vorak transmission from Zifar, Faye played on loop across the galaxy, a single screaming voice. "They're in the walls, they're in the static." Then laughter, human laughter. The void between stars swallowed all light, all sound, all mercy. The Vorak slave transport chains of Zorath drifted lifeless, its engines dark, its hull split open in a jagged wound that gleamed under distant starlight. Sergeant Mara Cade floated through the breach, her mag boots silent against the twisted metal. Behind her, 12 human operatives followed, their black armor streaked with crimson handprints, the mark of the freed, the mark of vengeance. "Thermals show no movement," whispered Corporal Rivas through the squad comms. "But Vorak don't just die." Cade's rifle stayed leveled. "They do when we're done with them." The interior of the transport was a nightmare of broken restraints and dried blood. The walls bore scratches, tiny fingernail marks, frantic and deep. Cade's HUD tagged them automatically. Human, juvenile, Fei years standard. Her jaw clenched, then she found the first body, a Vorak overseer, its chitinous armor cracked open from the inside, its 4 eyes frozen in terror. Something had burst out of its chest. Cade crouched, scanning the wound. "Not a weapon," she muttered. "This was organic." Rivers hissed. "What the hell did they do to our kids?" A noise echoed down the corridor, metal groaning. Something moving. The squad snapped into formation, rifles tracking the shadows. Then a voice, small, broken, but unmistakably human, called out, "Don't shoot." A girl stepped into the dim light, no older than 10. Her skin was pale from years without sunlight, her eyes too large for her gaunt face. She wore a tattered jumpsuit stained with Vorak blood. In her hands, she clutched a jagged piece of shrapnel like a knife. Cade's breath caught. Lena, the girl, Lena Voss, Captain Elias Voss' daughter, taken 3 years ago, shook her head. "Not anymore. They called me Subject Gamma. Faye," she pointed down the hall. "The others are waiting." The others were 47 children, some as young as 6, none older than 13. They stood in the ship's reactor chamber, surrounded by the corpses of Vorak technicians. The reactor itself had been torn apart, its core exposed, wires rerouted into a makeshift console. One of the older boys, his arms laced with scarred circuitry, looked up as Cade entered. "You're late," he said flatly. Cade's HUD flickered. The reactor wasn't just broken, it had been repurposed. "What is this?" Lena smiled. It didn't reach her eyes. "They put things inside us, machines to make us better slaves." She tapped her temple. A faint blue glow pulsed beneath her skin. "But we hacked them." The boy Jarek, his name tag read, gestured to the console. "Vorak tech runs on electricity. They used us as batteries. Then we learned to redirect the flow." Cade's stomach turned. The children weren't just victims, they were weapons. The Vorak had turned them into living conduits, capable of interfacing directly with ship systems. And somehow, the kids had turned it back on their captors. Rivas exhaled sharply. "Christ, you killed the crew from the inside." Lena's smile vanished. "Not just this crew." She tapped the console. A hologram flickered to life, a star map of the Vorak Empire. Dozens of ships blinked red. "We've been talking to the others on every transport, every mining colony." She met Cade's gaze. "We're ready." The data core in the corner beeped. Cade approached it, her fingers hovering over the playback controls. "What's on here?" Jarek's voice was ice. "What they did to us, what we did to them." The footage played, Vorak Labs. Children strapped to tables, screaming as cybernetic tendrils burrowed into their spines. Then, static, a surge of energy, the children convulsing, their eyes glowing blue as the machines inside them fought back. The Vorak scientists shrieking as their own systems turned against them. As tiny hands wrapped around their throats, Cade killed the feed. Lena picked up a fallen Vorak shock prod. It sparked in her grip. "They thought we were weak. But you know what happens when you corner a human child, Sergeant?" The lights on the console brightened. The reactor hummed. "You create a monster." Outside the ship, the USN Wraith decloaked, its railguns locking onto the transport. Admiral Carter's voice crackled over the comms. "Cade, we're detecting a power surge." Cade didn't hesitate. "Fall back now." The squad evacuated just as the reactor went critical. The chains of Zoroth exploded in a silent fireball, taking its secrets with it. On the Wraith's bridge, Carter watched the debris field expand. Those kids, they hijacked the ship? Cade stared at the fading light. "No, Admiral, they weaponized it." Somewhere in the dark, 47 voices whispered across the void. "We're coming." The palace trembled as another orbital strike hit the outer defenses. Dust rained from the vaulted ceilings of the Vorak throne room, the obsidian walls cracking under the relentless bombardment. High Overlord Craxus clutched his throne of human bones, his chitinous plates rattling with fury. "Where are my guards?" he roared. "Where is my fleet?" Vexis the Zephyrian slithered forward, his many eyes darting toward the shuddering ceiling. "Gone, my lord. The human dreadnoughts bypassed our orbital grids. Their boarding parties are already inside the palace." Craxus backhanded him across the room. "Impossible. This is Zoroth Prime. No species has ever..." A explosion rocked the far wall, sending shards of black stone flying through the smoke. Figures emerged, small, lean, clad in scavenged Vorak armor, painted with crude handprints. At their head strode Lena Voss, now 15, her face scarred from 5 years in the mines. In her hands gleamed a stolen plasma cutter, its edge still dripping with Vorak blood. "You took us because we were weak," Lena said, her voice steady. The other children fanned out behind her, their weapons humming to life. "You thought we'd break." Craxus laughed, a wet, guttural sound. "Look at you, pathetic little things. You think you can challenge me?" He unsheathed his ceremonial scythe, blades the curved edges shimmering with poison. Lena didn't flinch. "We don't challenge you. We erase you." From the shadows, Admiral Rachel Carter stepped forward, her black armor streaked with ash. The USN Vengeance's insignia glowed faintly on her shoulder. "You made one mistake, Craxus," she said, thumbing the activation switch on her wrist-mounted railgun. You gave them time to grow up. The throne room erupted into chaos. Lena moved like lightning, ducking under Kraxus's first swing and driving her plasma cutter into his exposed joint. The Vorak warlord howled, swinging wildly, but the children were everywhere, swarming, cutting, burning. They fought with the precision of those who had spent years studying their captor's weaknesses. Sergeant Mara Cade burst through the shattered doors, her squad of Black Ops Marines laying down suppressing fire. Admiral, the Wraith just took out their last defense platform. The skies are ours. Carter nodded, never taking her eyes off Kraxus. Good. Let's finish this. The Overlord was bleeding from a dozen wounds now. His once gleaming carapace cracked and smoking. He staggered back, his scythe, blades slipping from his grasp. You are just animals, he spat. Carter's railgun whined as it charged. No, animals run. She leveled the weapon at his face. We hunt. The shot tore through Kraxus's skull, splattering the throne behind him with ichor. The remaining Vorak guards froze, their mandibles clicking in disbelief. Lena stepped forward, raising her plasma cutter high. Zorath Prime falls today, she announced, her voice carrying through the crumbling hall. Tell the galaxy what happens when you take our children. Outside, the sky burned as human dreadnoughts descended, their railguns carving through the last of the Vorak fleet. The transmission went out on every frequency, every channel, echoing across the stars. This is Admiral Rachel Carter of the United Earthstrike Navy. The Vorak Empire is hereby dissolved. Any species found engaging in human trafficking will share their fate. In the ruins of the throne room, Vexis crawled toward the wrecked comm console, his limbs trembling. He had seen empires rise and fall, but never like this, never so fast. The children were already moving, stripping the palace of its weapons, its data cores, its secrets. They worked with cold efficiency, their eyes older than their years. Lena wiped the blood from her cutter and turned to Carter. What now? The Admiral holstered her railgun. Now, she said quietly, we go home. But the look in her eyes said something else. Now the galaxy learns to fear us. The acid oceans of Zorath Prime churned beneath the burning sky. The obsidian citadel that had stood for 10,000 years now cracked under the weight of human vengeance. Admiral Rachel Carter stood on the bridge of the US Vengeance, watching as the last Vorak defense platforms exploded in silent flashes of light. Her reflection in the viewport showed the scars of war, and the cold satisfaction of justice served. Admiral, came the voice of Commander Holt over the comb. Palace sector is secure. Kraxus is dead. A cheer erupted through the fleet channels, but Carter silenced it with a raised hand. Status on the children? Alive, Holt said, his voice rough with exhaustion. Most of them, anyway. Lena Voss is leading the survivors to the extraction point. Carter closed her eyes for a moment. The weight of the last 6 months pressed down on her, the sleepless nights, the Black Ops missions. The bodies left in their wake, but they had done it. They had torn the heart out of the Vorak Empire. Prep the broadcast, she ordered. On the surface, Lena Voss walked through the ruins of Kraxus's throne room. The bones of the dead crunched under her boots. She was no longer the frightened child who had been dragged from her homeworld. The mines had hardened her. The experiments had sharpened her. Now, at 14, she carried a Vorak shock, blade at her hip, and the weight of 1,000 dead friends on her shoulders. The other children followed her in silence. Some limped, some carried makeshift weapons. All of them had the same hollow look in their eyes, the look of those who had seen too much. Lena, whispered a boy no older than 9. Are we going home? She didn't answer right away. Instead, she looked up at the sky where the human fleet hung like avenging angels. Yeah, she finally said. But first, we send a message. Back aboard the Vengeance, Sergeant Mara Cade handed Carter a datapad. The last of the slave manifests. We've accounted for 63% of the missing. Carter's grip tightened on the pad. And the rest? Cade's face was stone. Dead or worse. The Admiral exhaled slowly. Then we make sure it never happens again. The transmission went out on all channels, across every frequency, in every language known to the galaxy. It showed Carter standing in full battle armor, the burning ruins of Zoroth Prime behind her. "People of the Galactic Federation," she began, her voice calm but edged with steel. 6 months ago, the Vorak Empire made a fatal mistake. They took our children. They thought we were weak. They thought we would beg for mercy. The camera cut to footage of the mining camps, human children in chains, their small hands bleeding as they dug for crystals. Then it showed the raids, human ships appearing out of nowhere, Vorak guards dying in droves. The glassing of Zifar Fey, "We do not beg." Carter continued, "We do not negotiate. When you harm our young, there is only one response." The screen flickered to the throne room. Craxus, broken and bleeding, looked up in terror as Lena Voss stepped into frame. The girl raised her blade, the image cut just before it struck. "Touch our children again," Carter said, her voice dropping to a whisper that carried the weight of a supernova, "and we erase your species from the stars." The transmission ended in the halls of the Galactic Council. Silence reigned. The representatives of 100 species sat frozen, their screens still glowing with Carter's final words. Only one voice broke the quiet. Vexis, the Zepyrian advisor, let out a shuddering breath. "They were never weak," he murmured. "They were just waiting for a reason to become monsters." On the edge of known space, the human fleet regrouped. The Vengeance and the Wraith, scarred but victorious, led the procession home. In their holds, the surviving children slept for the first time in months. Safe, at last, under the watch of those who had burned the Empire to save them. Lena stood at a viewport, watching the stars streak by. Behind her, Admiral Carter placed a hand on her shoulder. "You did good, kid." Lena didn't smile. There weren't many smiles left in her. But she nodded. "They won't forget this, will they?" Carter's grip tightened. "No," she said, "they won't." And as the fleet jumped toward Earth, the galaxy trembled. The humans had drawn a line in the void, cross it, and there would be no mercy, only fire. The message had been sent. The nightmare had begun.